Hey guys, so today we have a video that was requested by Melon Creamy. They asked me to do a extreme 50% fantasy declutter. So essentially, in a hypothetical world, I am being forced to declutter half of my products. I thought that was such a fun idea, and I thought I would start with eyeshadow palettes because eyeshadow palettes are one of my favorite categories of my collection. This is my collection. I have 16 palettes and we're gonna pretend that I have to cut this collection in half. Thank goodness I don't have to because I love all of these, but I thought it would be kind of fun to just see what I would actually keep. I think it'll be a fun little exercise. All right, so I tried to get them all in frame. We are going to have to cut this down to 8 palettes. It's gonna be hard. I decided to just do large palettes, so not like quads or anything. I'm thinking the easiest way to go about this is gonna be to start with the ones that I know I would never get rid of. So first one I would never get rid of is this one right here. This is Urban Decay Stoned Vibes. This has been my favorite palette for a few months now. You can see how much I've used it by the dips in there. I love this one. This has all of the jewel tones I need. It's got just the most beautiful shimmers. So this one is absolutely gonna have to stay. Also, not getting rid of ABH Norvina. This has been such a favorite for me recently. It's just such a romantic palette. I love just like the pinky, kind of ethereal springtime nature of this palette, and I would absolutely have to keep this. Another one that I would have to keep is the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz palette. This is such a favorite. For me, this is just the perfect cool-toned neutral palette for my skin tone. It leans pretty light to medium. It doesn't go super, super deep, which I love because I just know I'm not going to have to think very hard when I use this palette, and the mattes in here are so perfect. I don't know what it is about the mattes in here that just satisfy me so much. And then these 4 shimmers in the middle are just such beautiful like duochromes. So yeah, this is obviously gonna stay. So far these 3 are staying, and it's gonna get harder from here on out. I just know it. Slowly figuring this out together. I think what's gonna be really interesting to see is whether the ones that I end up deciding to keep will match up with my top 8 palettes from my palette ranking video that I posted a couple of weeks ago. I've only acquired 1 new palette since then. It's the Klarity Kosmetics So Mermaizing palette. Because I gotta keep in mind, you know, cutting my collection in half, I want to really pay attention to like how much variety I'm gonna be able to maintain with that smaller palette collection. So another one that I think I would have to keep is this one from BH Cosmetics. This is very new to my collection, one of the ones that I most recently bought. It's their Summer in St. Tropez palette. This is a beautiful, colorful palette. It's got a mix of some pastel and just lighter shades, some really pretty duochrome shimmers, and some brighter shades as well. And I think the quality of this is just outstanding. So definitely keeping that one. So in this hypothetical world, this would be half of my palette collection. So I get to keep 4 more. So those are kind of the 4 palettes that I like would never want to live without. I think now I can kind of try to rule out some of these other ones based on what I am keeping. So one thing that I think I can rule out, as a matter of fact, is this one right here, the Bili Beauty Eyes of India palette. Now, I love this palette a lot. You guys know that. But this is another kind of jewel tone palette. It does have a lot of sort of similar tones to Stone Vibes. Sorry, my fan is going and it's annoying. These are a little bit richer, I think, but if I had to pick between the 2, this would be the one to stay because I just think it might be a little bit redundant to keep both of these. So sorry, Bili Eyes of India. I love you so much, and I'm glad that this is just hypothetical, but this one is going to get kicked out. Oh, I hate, that pains me so much. All right, another one I can let go of for sure is Perfusion Mobs. This has just a bunch of like rosy mauves, obviously, that I feel like I already have covered between the Aether palette. I dug my fingernails into a couple of these shades a few weeks ago, and Norvina. See, I've got some pinks and mauves in here, and then some more pinks and mauves in here. So I just feel like those 2 needs are satisfied between those 2. And I just like Norvina and Rose Quartz a little bit more than Profusion Mobs. This is a great budget-friendly palette though. Another one I think I can get rid of because I feel like it might be redundant to keep is actually my Jungle Lights palette. I love this palette, okay? Don't get me wrong. But I've actually talked about how I feel like Jungle Lights is a really great sort of budget-friendly alternative to Stone Vibes, also because Stone Vibes is on its way out because it was limited edition last year. If you like just the foiled sparkly shimmers, this is a great option. If I have to cut my palette collection in half, it doesn't really make sense for me to keep both of these. And I do just like the texture of the Stone Vibes ones a little bit more. They're a little bit smoother and a little bit more translucent on my eyes, and there's something about that that just, I feel like just kind of takes it to the next level for me. This one, unfortunately, would have to go. So another one that I think I will be keeping is Earth and Ocean from e.l.f. Such a beautiful palette, so versatile, so many colors that are really unique to my collection. And I feel like I don't have very many of these colors really anywhere else in my collection, but I don't really have any of these repeated in the 4 that I'm already keeping. So this is another one that's going to stay. Hi, Tala. Another one that I think I actually will keep is the Klarity So Mermaizing palette. Part of this might just be because I just bought it, and it is definitely harder for me to let go of things I just bought. Even though I did have some criticism for this palette, I do have a 3 Looks 1 palette with it that I'll link for you. I would honestly keep this just for the shimmers alone. They're all duochromes. There aren't a ton of other duochrome shadows in my collection, especially within palettes, so yeah, I think it makes total sense for me to keep this palette because, again, there's a lot of shades in here that are very unique to my collection that I just don't have in other palettes. So despite my criticism, I would still keep this because it is just such a beautiful palette. All right, so to kind of refresh your memory, this is what I'm keeping so far. I have 6, so I get to keep 2 more. All right, let's see if I can rule anything else out. I think I'm gonna rule out ColourPop in a Trance because these just aren't colors that I reach for all that often. So I don't really feel like I need a palette dedicated to these like cotton candy shades, even though I like it and it is a fun palette. Glad I don't have to get rid of it in real life. I think it also makes sense to let go of ColourPop Miss Bliss. I love this palette. I've raved about it to death. The BH Cosmetics palette has several kind of peachy pinks in there and some yellows too. And then the Klarity palette also has a peach and a pink. So I just feel like it would be a little bit redundant to keep this. At this point, you know, if I'm cutting my collection down this much, these kind of monochromatic palettes, I just don't feel like they make a whole lot of sense to keep because, you know, I'm trying to maintain some variety. And, you know, obviously this palette is not like the epitome of variety, even though I love it. So I think I can also kick out Naked Wild West. I like this palette, I actually really do. I think I'm especially gonna like this in the fall, but it's just not the most unique palette. I just feel like I have, you know, a lot of these neutral shades already covered, so I'm gonna pass on this one. All right, let's open these 4 up so we can really get a good, solid look at them. I get to keep 2 of these 4 palettes, and what I'm realizing is that so far among the palettes that I'm keeping, most of these are on the more colorful side. The only one that's really neutral is the Aether Rose Quartz palette. And that's the only one that's like, you know, basic everyday shades. These other ones are a little bit more on the colorful side. So I actually think I'm gonna surprise myself and keep ABH Soft Glam. Even though I think it's my second least favorite ABH palette that I currently own. I am realizing, you know, I don't really have very many warm-toned neutrals that I'm keeping yet, and that is a category of eyeshadow that I do enjoy wearing. And I really like this palette as just like a nice fall neutral palette. It's got some beautiful like reddish browns, some bronzes, and, you know, if I'm not keeping like the Bili Beauty palette or Naked Wild West, I do think it makes sense to keep this one just for those kind of staple warm shades. I think I can actually let go of Subculture. This was my lowest ranked ABH palette, mainly because the shadows are just tricky to work with. Even though this is a very unique color story, I kind of feel like I've got a lot of these colors in other palettes, like in the BH Cosmetics palette. You wouldn't guess by looking at it, but you know, it does have kind of a greenish gold, it has a mustard, it has like a dark navy blue, a gold shade, a yellow, so there's actually a lot of overlap there, and then the warm neutral shades I can get from Soft Glam. So I would definitely miss this one because it's just a really fun palette, but I think for the sake of only keeping what I need, I can let go of that one. All right, so now we are down to these 2. Oh, I love both of these palettes. Thing is, I feel like both of these, you know, I already have a lot of these colors in here. So it's more a matter of just like which one of these makes me more happy. A lot of these cooler tone neutrals I kind of already have in the Aether palette. And, you know, the blues I already have in Elf, Earth, and Ocean, and then again, a lot of these cool tone neutrals I have in other palettes. I think I'm just gonna go with, like, my own, just how I feel right now. I'm just really feeling like I would rather keep the Shared Planet palette because it's just a little bit more interesting than Sultry. There's actually, I'm noticing now, a lot of kind of similar shades between these two. They both have a gray, a black, some of these shimmers look similar, and I think that these shades are just a little bit more interesting to me. So I think I'm gonna keep this one and get rid of Sultry, even though I love Sultry so much. I think it would just, you know, I have to really think about what's gonna make the 8 palettes that I'm keeping a unique mix of palettes, and I just feel like Shared Planet is that much more unique. So that is it. These are the 8 palettes that I would keep if I had to declutter half of my palette collection. Those are the ones that would stay, and it's interesting because of the ones I'm getting rid of, 2 of them were in my top 8. The Sultry palette from ABH and the Bili Beauty palette. And then of the ones that were in my bottom 8, I'm only keeping one of those, and that is Soft Glam. Soft Glam was only in my bottom 8 because I wasn't like super in love with the color story. My main critique was that it just had too many browns in it. But for the sake of this video, because there weren't really any other warm tone palettes, I did want to keep this one because, you know, you gotta have a warm tone palette. At least I do. That was a really fun, interesting video. Thank you for the request. I thought that was really fun. And let me know if you'd like to see any other categories of my collection. I'm thinking maybe I could do lipsticks next because I do have a weakness for lipstick. I think that would be really fun as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's just kind of a fun little exercise. If you did enjoy it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you again very soon, and hopefully I will talk to you in my next video. Bye.